Hello, this is Community Matters. I'm honored to be your host. My name is Becky Steinbruner, and I want to thank you all for joining us here on Community Matters on Santa Cruz Voice. Today we have two wonderful guests. I'm very honored to have in this first hour Mr. Barry Branin, and I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, Barry. Barry, and our second guest will be Mr. Phillip Carranco in the second hour. Barry, you are welcome to stay on for the second hour if you want. My first guest, Barry Branin, is with the Citizens to Preserve Morro Bay, and they are doing an amazing job. There are parallels with what we here in the Monterey Bay are looking at, following up on the devastating fire last week at the Moss Landing battery energy storage site. I want to just very quickly, and I'll repeat this, put out an information just that came out an hour ago from the citizens who are trying to help get information and organize around the Moss Landing event. They are asking an immediate request for volunteers for service testing. This is time sensitive. This action is scheduled for this Saturday and Sunday. They have, out of their own pockets, secured testing kits and are hiring an industrial hygienist because the County of Monterey has committed to testing, but there's no date and the specimens are degrading over time. This is an all-volunteer community effort. They need volunteers that can go and take samples from the areas Prunedale, Moss Landing, Carmel, Gilroy, Scotts Valley, Gonzales. It is important. They have purchased 100 test kits to distribute, and they would like to get samples from people. If you want to contact them, here is the email, BCR, that's email B as in boy, C as in Charlie, ROED as in Dave, ER123 at gmail.com. I'll repeat that. BCR BCROEDER123 at gmail.com. He is handling the volunteer organization coordination for all of this, and they need your help. Thank you. I'll repeat that information later in the program too. So with that, I would like to now go to our very wonderful guest, Mr. Barry Branin. Barry, thank you for being our guest today and for all your hard work in the Morro Bay area. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Barry Branin, and we here in Morro Bay saw what happened to that Moss Landing facility about 2 years ago. We had a proposal from Vistra. They came down to our community center and did their presentation, and we were watching it closely, and we didn't really like what we saw, and so we saw that there was a small fire at the facility back about 2 years ago.
Yes.
And so we're unique in that we are a city. We are our own city, and our general plan of all of our zoning has to be approved by the Coastal Commission because we are a city. So what we did is a group of us said, okay, when our general plan was updated after we had a similar power plant that was been shut down for 15 or 16 years and sitting right there in the middle of town, and we said, okay, we felt that any decision for having a large-scale battery facility installed, that decision could be made by 3 people on the council. 3 people on our council could vote yes to change the zoning. When our general plan was updated with the Coastal Commission, they designated the Coastal Commission with our people designated the old power plant as visitor serving commercial because they could see that's right in the center of our town. So that was all approved about 2 years before we got invited. We said, how do we keep some people to be influenced? And because you have a change of city council, mayor every 2 years, and councilman every 4 years, we said, let's take that control away from the politicians, so to speak, and let's put a measure on the ballot so that zoning couldn't be changed unless it was voted on by the people. So we went to we were able to gather enough money to hire an attorney to write the initiative, got the signatures, got the measure on the ballot. And so last November, when the measure was on the ballot, we had our usual turnout in Morro Bay is about 80% of the citizens who are registered will vote. So we had a pretty good turnout. And when the votes came back, 60% of the people who voted yes on our measure, which then gave us the ability that if someone ever comes to the city and wants to put a large-scale battery there, they'll have to come back to the citizens for the citizens to vote it in.
Excellent.
So we're unique in that is what we did. And what was really ugly is all of a sudden we had a bunch of dark money come in. And so we had coming in from New Jersey. We had 10 times as much money came in from the outside as we were able to scrape up here.
Wow.
So we had television commercials. We had all kinds of stuff on our TV and every time you turn your phone on, you get an ad from Vistra. So we were kind of worried. They just kept hammering at us, and we would just go door to door, talk to our people. So our measure passed. So we are a little unique. And the Coastal Commission then, as this went along, they submitted Vistra submitted their proposal, their permit, and so we had so much time to look at their permit, and we had a lot of volunteers, and we had one volunteer attorney, retired attorney, and she was qualified in environmental impact statements.
Ooh.
So we went and looked at their Vistra had filed an environmental impact report. So we returned, and when we turned in 1,000 pages of questions about their environmental impact, and so Vistra their consultant never got back, and all we have is a draft environmental impact report. And I kind of got a feeling that they saw that was an impediment for them going forward. And then after the vote was in, Vistra kind of staggered, I will say. And they came to the city and they said, we would like to pause our permit. Well, there is no such thing as pausing a permit. Either you are or you aren't. Yeah. So they said, we're going to pause our permit and we're going to go to the state. And as you probably know by now, the California Energy Commission, under Assembly Bill AB 205,
yes,
tells it's a way to circumvent any local control. But within AB 205, if you read it carefully, there's an exception that we utilized, and it says that any area where the Coastal Commission has authority, that they're basically have to sign off on the project too. So we started attending all of the Coastal Commission meetings. We have some very retired active people, and we have one lady that's been to every Coastal Commission meeting for the last 2 years, and she goes in and smiles and knows them by name. So we were able to kind of propagate our relationship there. So then in August, just before Vistra paused their permit, the Coastal Commission wrote the city a 4-page letter. And basically what they said, and the key to it, is these projects are not coastal dependent. Everything in the coastal zone has to be coastal dependent. And this doesn't qualify for that. So we felt that with the letter from the Coastal Commission that we were making progress, but then when they paused it, we said, what do we have now? But we thought we were going to win, and that's briefly a summary of where we are.
Wow. For those of you who are just tuning in, welcome to Community Matters. I'm your host, Becky Steinbruner. I'm here on the phone with Mr. Barry Branin from the Morro Bay community, outlining for us what their community is doing. It is parallel to what we here in Santa Cruz County are now looking at in in light of the horrible fires at Moss Landing battery energy storage plant last week. You should know Vistra is the same company as what is in the Morro Bay area, and they're doing some very sneaky tactics to avoid as much as possible the local jurisdiction. Santa Cruz County has 3 such locations approved within the county of Santa Cruz. That was done under Board of Supervisor Bruce McPherson, who sits on the Board of Community Energy, 3CE. The CAO of Santa Cruz County, Carlos Palacio, sits on the board of 3CE. And the co-signer for that ordinance to approve these 3 battery energy storage sites was 4th District Supervisor Phillip Hernandez. Now, I will tell you that the sites are located next to existing PG&E substations. The site in Watsonville on Green Valley Road, 90 Minto Road, is already barreling through the permit approval process. The one required public meeting that the energy company, it's called New Leaf, was required to have happened in December without anybody knowing. They did mail out postcards. The hearing was on December 12th, according to Felipe Hernandez's analyst, Ramon. But what I know, having seen one of the mailed out postcards, which was only sent out to a very small radius of property owners from this plant at 90 Minto Road in Watsonville, had no time on the postcard when the meeting was going to happen. These are the kinds of tactics that we as citizens must be aware of, and like the good people in Morro Bay, we need to work together and learn from each other and stop these kinds of things from happening in our communities. The other 2 sites in Santa Cruz County is in Aptos, near Aptos High School, and the third is in Santa Cruz on Paul Sweet Road near Dominican Hospital. So with that, bringing any local listeners up to date, this is why it is so important to take to hear what Mr. Branin is saying and to learn more about what they are doing and what is coming from it. Mr. Branin, you mentioned AB 205 that allows that is now law and allows Vistra or New Leaf Energy, in the case of the Watsonville project, to not have to get any approvals from local jurisdictions. They can get it instead directly from the California Energy Commission as a certificate of operation. Why do you think that talk with us a little bit about what your community feels about that. You did start meeting the Coastal Commission. We here in Santa Cruz have maybe an advantage that the chairman of the Coastal Commission is Mr. Justin Cummings, who is the county supervisor in Santa Cruz County in the 3rd District. So we have that connection. Talk with us a little bit about what your interaction with the Coastal Commission has been, your interaction, if you've had any, with the California Energy Commission. And also, I'd like to bring onto the table the actions of Assembly Member Dawn Addis, because she also represents parts of Santa Cruz County and the Moss Landing area.
Let's see if I can. That's a lot of questions.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I think the unique thing is a lot of those are in the non-city areas, so your jurisdiction goes back to the county.
It all is in the county, yes.
So you've had your challenge is to persuade the county supervisors to be prudent in their decisions. And I think I saw the news report when you had Glenn Church on there, and he seems like a spectacular, but he's in Monterey County.
He
But
is.
And he seems to understand. But let me go back and let me give you the really good picture. And this was a revelation that came this week. Assemblywoman Dawn Addis. Dawn Addis was in Morro Bay, and she was on our city council. And then she was elected and just reelected as an assembly person. And Dawn Addis, basically, we've been talking to her, trying to get her to understand the challenge that if something like the Moss Landing facility was put here in the center of Morro Bay, it would be a tremendous problem, because if you took the evacuation area that's been the map that came out from Moss Landing, and you put it over our town, it would affect 35,000 people. There's 10,000 in Morro Bay, and there's 15,000 in Los Osos, and probably 2,000 or 3,000 in Cayucas. So that's a tremendous impact. So I think finally, and she did a report this week. Maybe you've seen it or aired it. She actually had a press conference this week.
Yes.
And it's worth looking up. At her press conference, her goal is to not really repeal or find some way to change AB 205, and she has a new bill. It's called AB 303. And I think that AB 303, I haven't seen it fleshed out yet. It's still working on it. But I think that may be the solution to your permitting problem. But the argument is, and I'm going to a little sidetrack here. I'm an engineer by degree, and I build a lot of things. And I looked at what they did. Now, the first fire, for example, in Moss Landing with Vistra, they said that the battery overheated, which they'll do if you overcharge them, and they had a little hose system to spray water on these batteries to cool it down. Well, the hose clamp on their external hose system failed and slipped off, and that's why they had their first fire up there. And so when you think about the fact that they've got a bunch of plumbers putting things together with hose clamps, that doesn't really reassure me as an engineer. And this whole industry is basically a bunch of cowboys, because there are no federal standards on these installation of these large-scale battery facilities.
Wow.
Now, if you get a small battery, like in a scooter, you've seen pictures of the fires with lithium batteries and Tesla fires. But when you compound that, and you get what they call the thermal runaway, and you get one module in these big plants, and that's what happened at Moss Landing. They had one battery that got hot, and they sprayed water on it, but they didn't have enough water on it. And so it got the one next to it hot, and next to it hot, and on and on. If you watch the fires, which I did intently at Moss Landing, you could see that it was a thermal runaway that just got completely wet away from. And your fire chief up there, as an aside, he said, we can't put it out. We're going to stand back and watch. Well, I know that when Vistra put that facility up there, they came to the county and they said, look, we're going to give you 8 new firemen. We're going to pay their salaries and get them all set up. And then when the fire comes, the firemen can't do any work for them. So it seems like a kind of a strange relationship. So my point is that there are no standards for these installations. And until someone comes up with a federal standard on these large-scale battery storage, energy storage systems, then they need to not be anywhere near where they can be burden people. And you have to look and say, okay, where does the energy come for these batteries? And if you do any driving in the Southwest, as I had, you have large areas of solar panels, large solar panel arrays. And so the solar panels they're right next to the grid, are connected to the grid, so they can take the power from the solar panels into the grid. So the obvious place is to put the batteries next to the solar panels. So during the day, you charge the batteries, and at night, you take the power out of the batteries and you send it into the grid. They don't need to be anywhere near there are people. So Dawn Addis is working on this Assembly Bill 303. When that comes, I've had some people in our talk about it. She had some limitation of 3,400 feet between there's some federal law regarding oil wells. Well, oil wells and lithium batteries are interesting, but they're a whole different battle. So the formation of AB 303 is what you have to work with, and that's what, if I were you, I'd be following on that, and I'd be talking to Dawn Addis and seeing what you can do to help her get that passed.
Indeed. I have looked up the language of AB 303, and it says this bill would prohibit the authorization of a development project that includes a battery energy storage system capable of storing 200 megawatt hours or more of energy if the development project is located within 3,200 feet of a sensitive receptor or is located on environmentally sensitive area as specified. I think that's what you're referring to as the 3,000 feet
Yes.
area.
The obvious thing is you may be next to a receptor, but my suggestion is it needs to be prohibited near its tributaries, because if you were next to a stream that ran into a river that ran into the ocean, all you're doing is moving that ash contamination into the ocean. So these things need to be where more than that. 3,000 feet is it's an interesting number, but I think that's not the way to do it, because they'll work around you. It needs to be more prohibitive than that. But anyhow, she's made a good effort. She needs support, and I suggest your group be contacting her. We have, and say, how can we help you? How can we support this? And that's the way I think you're going to be able to solve the problem, because we feel in Morro Bay that with this, we'll not get the batteries. We are still concerned, and I met with our committee today. We said, well, we can finally relax after 2 years of knocking on doors.
Mm-hmm. And that's because of the letter from the Coastal Commission?
Well, no, it's because of Don Addis's new bill. If that bill passes, which I think it will, then there's no way that because we have a high school about that distance away from where the batteries would be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's high school children, I think, are pretty sensitive receptors the last I looked.
Yes. Sensitive receptor is in AB 303 is defined as a residence, including a private home, condominium, apartment, or living quarter, an educational resource, including preschool, school maintaining transitional kindergarten, or any grades 1 through 12, daycare, park, playground, university, or college. A community resource center, such as a youth center, a health care facility, including a hospital, retirement home, or nursing home, live-in housing, including long-term care, hospital, hospice, prison, detention center, dormitory, or a building housing a business that is open to the public. Now, there's an interesting one. So this is AB 303, just introduced by Assembly Member Don Addis yesterday in the California Assembly. So if you're just tuning in to Community Matters, this is Becky Steinbrunner, your host, and I have with me on the line here Mr. Barry Branin with the good folks organizing down in Morro Bay. Talk with us a little bit, if you will, because we may have some listeners who are beginning this effort to work in Moss Landing to try to organize there. What do you recommend, other than very carefully monitoring AB 303 and supporting Assembly Member Don Addis? What do you recommend to our community as we try to organize to get better information about the Moss Landing fire, and in Santa Cruz County organize to get our supervisors to listen to us about our concerns on these 3 proposed sites?
The key for us was communication. And so we had a retired teacher and a retired photographer. So we generated a website. So you need to and actually go back. We actually formed a political action committee with the state, and we actually I actually signed the papers today. So any money we collected has to be accounted for, all kinds of reporting. So you need someone who's patient, who's a financial person that can do your books for you, because it's very important. You don't need a lot of money, but you'll need to account for every penny of it. Mm-hmm. You should buy yourself a post office box so people know where to send the money, just like running an election campaign. And you need to find someone that will build you a website. They're not very expensive. And then also a Facebook page. So you need those lines of communication. You'll find that there are a lot of talented people that can't spend a lot of time, but they have those skills. I'm a I'm a senior citizen, if you understand what I'm saying. But there are some freshly retired people that have those skills that if you ask them, they say, I can't spend a lot of time on it, but this is what I know how to do. And that's the key. You have to have a basic communication, and then you'll find that your communication allows you to spread the information quickly. Your Facebook page, there is a Facebook page up right there right now talking about the health issues in your area. A friend of mine just found it and sent me the connection for that Facebook page. So we came up with this, because we're here in the Estero Bay, we have these other cities. That's why we called it Citizens for the Preservation of Estero Bay. That was our goal. Mm-hmm. And if you look around, I think most people don't realize, because time goes on, in our little community, believe it or not, in the 20s, Estero Bay was the largest exporting point for petroleum on the whole West Coast. Wow. They pumped it over from Taft. There were oil ships that used to anchor offshore. We'd load oil, and we would send it to San Francisco, the refineries. We sent it for all different places. So we looked around and said, okay, we've had brown zones. One brown zone was the Chevron terminal where they took that boat loading facility out and all the tanks. We have another brown zone where they used to bring ships in and pump jet fuel ashore, and there were tanks in Morro Bay where they would ship the oil, the jet fuel, all the way to the Lemoore Naval Air Station, and it came in onshore here in Morro Bay. Well, those tanks are gone. We also had another distribution facility for gasoline and diesel that was brought in and pumped in. Morro Bay is an old port city, and you have brown zones all up and down. So you have to, as a community, say, okay, how do we solve this brown zone? And my goal is always to get rid of this last brown zone in Morro Bay, is the old power plant place. And if you have the understanding that the green energy is a really good concept, but we have to, if we're going to save the world, we have to clean up the mess behind us, and that's kind of been my goal.
Yeah, thank you. Would you like to now open up our phone lines here in case callers want to talk with you and get some more information? Would that be all right?
Sure, I'm not bashful.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Those of you listening, please feel free to call in to our studio here. Here's the number, 831-265-5050. Again, 831-265-5050. I'm interviewing Mr. Barry Branin, who is representing the Citizens for Estero Bay Preservation, an all-grassroots citizen group, just like what we've now got going in the Prunedale Moss Landing area. I did attend the organization meeting held by that group on Monday at the Prunedale Grange, and I was happy to see Monterey County Supervisor Glenn Church there. He spoke a little bit. It was an organizational meeting. It was not a question and answer session at all. That frustrated a lot of people. But Mr. Brennan, the thing that caught the ear of my ear and many others is in his talk to the people, with the people, Supervisor Church talked about dark money. He worded it, there are some very powerful forces, organizations that are going to make this hard to close down. You mentioned something about that, about all the money that started pouring in from New Jersey and all that. Do you have any sense? Do you want to talk with us a bit about that?
Yes, off the top of my head, I can't give you the details. I can find them in my files, but we found that I'm sure that these big companies who are making a profit on what we're doing use these places in the East. They were Union Hall. Unions tends to be our biggest people that were challenging up front, because they've been promised all kinds of jobs to build these facilities. And so the unions have quite a few dues and money, and they're big contributors. And we had people show up from L.A. It's typical. Well, I won't do that because it's kind of wouldn't be nice. But we had people show up at our city council meeting, and stand up and tell us how wonderful this was going to be. So we've had a lot of pressure from these groups, is to the point that it's almost it was almost embarrassing. I said, "You're coming to our little town and you're telling us," because they're going to say, "Well, you're going to have all these jobs to build it, and then you're going to have all this situation." Well, the fact is, the jobs, the people won't live in your town. They're not sustainable jobs. And after the batteries get there aren't very many people that run it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of money come in from, I'm finding now on my can of my package here, of the names of the companies who are the contributors were just so innocuous and almost, it's almost scary. You felt like the mafia was coming. Then that's a bad thing to say, but that was the feeling that we had.
That was the sense I had in the demeanor of Supervisor Glenn Church at this Prunedale Grange meeting. He was obviously very agitated, probably from just the disaster that had and continues to happen in the community, and the fact that the Prunedale Grange was packed. There were over 200 people there. And he referred to these powerful sources from outside. And that was the sense I also had in watching the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors shove this through. The planning department, when the planning department had pleaded with them in August when it first came up out of the blue to get 6 months to review the environmental issues of these, at that time, 4 sites.
Let me read you the list I have the numbers now.
Oh.
And here's I'm going to read you the 5 names. Was $12,800 from the Green Light Action Group in Washington, D.C. And then they had another $15,000 on October of 24 from the Green Light Action, Washington, D.C. And then September, there was $26,000 contributed to the group against us, Oppose A24, from the Local Jobs and Economic Development Fund, Dover, Delaware.
Gosh.
And then also in September, we had $22,800 from the Local Jobs and Economic Development Fund, Dover, Delaware. And then on another September was $7,000 from the Green Light Action, Washington, D.C. So there was over $83,000 came in to buy ads and signs and paid door-to-door solicitors to fight our measure. So we were just shocked when we saw this kind of money, because they had to file, they had an FTPC number, and they had to file this information, and it just, they were trying to buy our town. And that's, I think, if you were able to dig down through and look at the contributions from some of your elected officials, might be an interesting examination.
Indeed. Thank you. In Santa Cruz County, I think it also, I think Central Coast Community Energy also is in San Luis Obispo. It goes all the way down to Santa Barbara.
Yes.
That group began here in Santa Cruz County under the direction of former, now, County Supervisor of the 5th District, Supervisor Bruce McPherson, and really pushed through by our County Administrative Officer, Carlos Palacios. That is the driver here, I think, in our county to get these approvals rushed through, because 3CE has the promise of eventually providing 100% wind and solar energy, and that all must be, that is all dependent on battery energy storage. So that is what we're seeing, and I think that you may also get some pressure from 3CE. Have you encountered any of that?
Well, they came to us and offered electrical service. I have a ranch, and I have put in a new well. And when I got electricity, if you get a new electrical, you automatically get enrolled in those people. You have to opt out. So to me, it's inappropriate, because they're not responsible for the lines. They just want to take your money. They're buying electricity and reselling it. And I won't use the word I'm thinking about, but I don't think it's appropriate. So, and I think if you really go back to it, the federal government, with their Green New Deal, put a lot of money out there and told the windmill people and the battery people, we'll give you all this money and you can do all these things. And so that's where the source of the money came from. Yeah. And I think that perhaps there's a change in the government that we might stop. I know it stopped the funding. One of the companies that was got the offshore windmill, Ostad, their lease site, they just announced and actually wrote it in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that they consider their lease sites that they've obtained can now be worth zero because they see that they'll no longer get the, I'm calling it greenwash money that promotes these bizarre projects.
Yeah. I really want to thank you for looking up in your records where all this money came from. $83,000 to oppose your citizen petition, yep. A24, just to say, do you want to just tell us what A24 did?
Yep, all A24, here again, because we are a city, we have to have a general plan that determines all of the land use for every parcel in our city. Well, the power plant property had been unused for many years, and so when they rewrote our general plan about 3 years ago, we had to get the approval of the Coastal Commission. So in conjunction with the Coastal Commission, that land use where the old power plant was determined to be visitor serving commercial, because that's how we live here. We live off the tourist dollars.
So, much like Santa Cruz.
Exactly. So we have visitor serving commercial. So now we had established a land use. So all our measure did was to make sure that, I'm going to say the word, that three ill-informed city council people, or the mayor and two, could approve a land use change. Sometimes called a zoning change, but the proper word is a land use change. We said we don't want that exposure to happen because we've had some bad experiences with some inappropriate actions from previous councils. So we said, let's make it so that if you want to change that to other than visitor serving commercial, it'll have to come back to the voters. So at the November ballot, our measure passed 60%, said, yes, we want to make sure that any future change for that battery facility has to come to the voters to approve. So that's what we won, and that's what measure A24 was. It's a little, people said, well, they're going to go around you anyhow. I said, yeah, you might, but you win what you can win, and that was our attack.
Yeah. And then you described that won, and then Vistra, the same company down in Moss Landing, said we're going to pause our project. And what they really were doing was running to the California Energy Commission under the umbrella of AB 205 that, let me read to our audience, and listeners, please feel free to call in and join the conversation here. 831-265-5050. We have on the line here with us Mr. Barry Branin from the Citizens for Estero Bay Preservation, who have taken phenomenal organizational actions in their community to fight back a battery energy storage facility. That is what Santa Cruz is looking at right now, and certainly Moss Landing residents, Monterey County residents need to look at as well to organize. Organizing people is a tough skill, and Mr. Branin is here to tell us all and educate us all. Please join our conversation, 831-265-5050. I want to read what AB 205 allows. This bill will establish, or does establish, it's law now, a new certification process for solar voltaic, terrestrial wind generation power plants, thermal power plants that do not use fossil or nuclear fuels, generating 50 megawatts. Let me skip on down. It's in the next section, actually. It would basically would require the Energy Commission to implement and administer the Distributed Energy Backup Assets Program to incentivize construction of cleaner, more efficient distributed energy assets. Oh, I have not highlighted the proper place. It basically takes all the power away from the local people. It would require the commission, it says here, to forward the application to a local government having land use and related jurisdiction in the areas of the proposed site, and require the local agencies to review the application and submit comments on the application. But the bill authorizes the Energy Commission to issue this certificate of operation without really having anything other than a chance to comment. Is that what you understand AB 205 to be as well, Mr. Branin?
That's the way it is, but there's an exception that was kind of hidden at the back, and if you look at it carefully, it's way back in the back.
It's a 32-page document.
Yeah, we found a legal summary. And one of the things that there's an exception that says, however, if you're in certain areas, then the local authority of that area has the final decision. And the Coastal Commission is specifically mentioned in AB 205, and it says that the state permitting process works. However, unless the Coastal Commission says no, or actually, even in the San Francisco Bay area, that commission that controls the waterfront in San Francisco Bay is also specifically allowed. So this was the loophole we saw, and that's why we spent so much time building our relationship with the Coastal Commission, because we want to ensure that they understood what our challenge would be if we were ineffective in getting our measure passed. So there are some exceptions in there, and there's some good summaries. But if you look up AB 205, I think I found a 3-page summary that had everything on it. But just a little aside here. Now, Vistra wrote a letter to the city, said we're going to pause our permit, and we're going to go to the state. Now, it's been 2 or 3 months since they wrote that letter, and they have not filed with the state yet to get a permit. Now, I'm not sure why. But they have not filed, and maybe they saw the rest of the letter of the law that said that the Coastal Commission has the final say, and the copy of that letter written August 2nd to the city by the Coastal Commission may have landed on somebody's desk.
We can only hope. Once a carrier or an applicant does file, the California Energy Commission must conduct an application completeness review within 30 days of the application filed. That worries me a little bit about what we are faced with here in Santa Cruz County. They can request additional information. CEC, the Energy Commission, must share application with local governments, interested parties. So if you are, Mr. Brandon, did you sign on, your group sign on as an interested party so that you get any updates from the California Energy Commission?
3 or 4 of our group individually have done that. So we're watching it closely, and they have not filed. So okay. The answer is our group has, but we're fortunate. We have some very strong, active people who are. There's an old saying that there was a philosopher named Plato, and he said, if you don't participate in government, you will be ruled by idiots. And so that's our practice. We participate in government very strongly here. And so we have some active participants, and so we kind of know what's going on, to be honest with you.
That is excellent. That is excellent. My common thought is the people are the fourth arm of government. But boy, it is hard to stay in the know, isn't it? One At the on Tuesday, I attended the virtually the Monterey County Board of Supervisors emergency meeting, and at that meeting, one of the county supervisors now was on the planning commission when Vistra got its approvals for the Moss Landing site. And people were really quizzing her. Why? How could you approve this? She said at that meeting on Tuesday that when Vistra came and the project was laid out before the Planning Commission of Monterey County, there was no discussion at all of fire risk. And it came with great support from the environmental groups in the area. The Sierra Club was so happy to have this because it would be getting away from fossil fuels and supporting green energy. But it comes with such a price, as we have seen at Moss Landing. The other piece of information, go ahead, please.
The Sierra Club, actually, during our fight here during the election period, the Sierra Club came out with a very a letter opposing our measure.
Really?
And yes, so I'm afraid that that their eyes are clouded in their vision of the future. So Sierra Club is pretty well bought onto this Green New Deal. And I think that some of this climate talk has clouded their vision. So it's not just local. The Sierra Club is, I think, their hands are dirty in this area.
Mm-hmm. I suspect the same. I would like to invite our listeners, and you too, Mr. Branin, if you're interested, on January 21st here at Santa Cruz Voice on the morning program, Good Morning Monterey Bay. The host, Rosemary Chalmers and Bill Wolverton, interviewed Assemblymember Don Addis and also interviewed State Senator John Laird. And it was interesting to listen to those two elected officials. They used to have the same opinion. Now, Assemblymember Don Addis is much more, I think, on the people's side of this, rather than, as you say, having clouded vision of the green energy piece. For anyone that wants to listen to that interview, you can go to santacruzvoice.com, scroll down to the bottom to current shows, and look at Good Morning Monterey Bay. Click on that site, and then click on the January 21st program. At about the 1 hour, 45-minute piece of that recording, you can listen to the interview. It's a 10-minute interview with Assemblymember Don Addis. And then a little later, at about minute 2 hour 35 minutes, is a 10-minute interview with John Laird. He talked a lot about how this is really great technology, and unfortunately, what happened at Moss Landing is because it was the old technology. The battery units were not compartmentalized. It was in a warehouse from the old PG&E power plant. And I learned this at the supervisors' meeting on Tuesday, when Vistra actually testified. It was a building 75 feet tall and 800 feet long, and the batteries were all stacked in there. There was no compartmentalization. But the point was that it did not have any, the fire suppression system did not work. And going back to that meeting with the county supervisors Tuesday, the former planning commissioner said there was never any talk about fire danger. One of the members of the public got up and said that she had remembered seeing the emergency plan that was modeled on one battery catching fire and air current modeling based on the Salinas Airport wind currents, not what is at Moss Landing. So those programs, those interviews are very enlightening. And I think we really have to jump on board with Assemblymember Dawn Addis. She is there to support the people and certainly support Monterey County Glen Church Supervisor. We've got about
I would
5 minutes
I would
here.
say that one of the reasons that Dawn Addis changed her mind, I think, is her house. She lives in Morro Bay. Her house is probably a mile downwind from our power plant property. So I think if you required Senator Laird to live within a mile of Moss Landing, it might change his point of view.
I think that might do it, huh? Well, I'm glad that Assemblymember Dawn Addis has changed her tune and is, she's coming up with, she's filed AB 303 that will essentially claw back the power that AB 205 gave to companies like Vistra and New Leaf to really go around local jurisdictions and go straight to the state. The question is, how quickly can AB 303 make it through? I'm hoping that it will become law very soon. Governor Newsom, as you sent a nice article to me, Mr. Branin, Governor Newsom has also asked for an independent investigation of the Moss Landing disaster. We have about 4 minutes. Mr. Branin, we have one caller coming in here, but may I take it? It's Bill Wolverton. May I take it? Thank you.
Please do.
Thank you. Hello, Bill Wolverton. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I hear you. It's a good show. You got a good guest as well. I'm calling because I heard you mention our interview with Dawn Addis and another with John Laird.
Yes.
I didn't hear whether you gave the episode number or not. And if people go to Spotify or iHeartRadio or all those other places, they'll see descriptions. But if they go to SantaCruzVoice.com, they won't see a description. So they need to know it's episode 490.
Okay. Thank you.
490.
Thank you very much. Thank you for getting those interviews together and putting them up on the website for people to listen to. Do you have any questions for Mr. Barry Branin?
No, you guys are doing a great job and you're doing important work. And looks like he's a trailblazer and we got some similar work to do here, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Okay, doing good work, Becky. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much for calling, Bill. So,
yep. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bill Wolverton, for calling in. He's one of the hosts of Good Morning Monterey Bay on SantaCruzVoice.com. I want to give you 2 more minutes here. Mr. Branin, finish up, please, and you're welcome to stay on for the second hour if you wish, when my next guest, Mr. Phil Carranco, who is a local resident and internationally known policy regulator expert. So what would you like to leave with our audience?
Well, one tool that's really simple and easy, there's a thing called Nextdoor. I hope you have Nextdoor in the community there.
Yes, we do.
We use Nextdoor, and that's been where we've been able to put our various, this podcast, all these things can be on. You could put links on there and stories on there. And there was some pretty strong back and forth fighting on Nextdoor. So that's a low cost, zero go, and you just have to get 4 or 5 people and watch Nextdoor, pay attention, put this on there, because you'll find that's going to be where you're going to mine the customers and your participants. They're going to hear about it, they can see it, they can know, and without looking to a Facebook or anything, because everybody's curious about what's going on next door. And that was a wonderful tool that we use. We still use it daily.
Excellent. Thank you. Tell us how we can get a hold of you and your group.
Our group is very small, and we don't have a big staff. We have a Facebook page and Citizens for Estero Bay. I don't have the paperwork here in front of me, but just look up Morro Bay Citizens for Estero Bay Preservation, and maybe you have that there. Probably easier than I do.
Yes, I do.
I'm the guy that goes to the meetings, but I'm not kind of the secretary, so I'm sorry.
Well, thank you very much. We are now off the air, but I want to thank you so much for your good work and all of your citizens, your people down there for all of your hard work. And I think we're going to be working together with you to learn from what you did. Your information about all this money from Delaware and Washington D.C. was staggering. And
The thing that I'll tell you, which is really kind of strange, Morro Bay is a pretty diverse political spectrum,
mhm.
and we found that diversity was our strength because everybody's kind of tired of I don't insult anybody of the blue-haired ladies screaming and hollering.
Yes.
And I'm not a blue-haired lady, and as a matter of fact, we have one woman that's very proactive, and she says on these interviews like yours and another one we just have our local radio station, we want the men to talk. So my point is you really need to solicit a both sides of the aisle because there's strength on both sides.
Yes. You know, that's what I saw at the Prunedale Grange the other night. Excuse me, somebody's just stepped in. What, Jeff?
I think you're off the air.
Yeah, I'm just talking with the guest.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to know, I'm not coming in on you. I'm going to get ready to do Jim's show.
Okay, thank you. The next host coming in at 4 o'clock just stopped in.
Okay.
That is what I saw at the Prunedale Grange. It was a wide array of ages, interests, and skill sets, but they all came together. And you know, it's difficult to try to organize a grassroots group because you don't know a lot of the people. You don't know really. It's a tough job setting up something like this.
I went to farmers market every
Yes.
week for 2 years, and we had our sign there, and we had sign-up sheets. You have to do that. You have to go to the place where people come.
Yeah.
That's where you get the people. And we probably have 400 people on our protected email list. I don't even know how to run it, but the people in our group say, okay, I can handle that problem, and you can handle that problem. So you need a crusty old man like me to be your leader, I guess. I don't know how to do it. I'm 85 years old. I shouldn't be doing this.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you for doing it. Thank you. Because it's such important work, and I want to congratulate you on passing Measure A24. That is marvelous. Yeah, I've done a lot of petition work too, and I know that is hard work.
Yeah, well, when you got the right cause, it's difficult, but not impossible. We were shocked at all that dark money coming in. We couldn't believe it because they were buying public television ads in the evening news. And if you were doing any research on your computer, you'd get an ad, and they were spectacular colored ads with sound and music. I mean, we were just shocked how much they came after us, and a lot of these contributions didn't even show up because they were in lieu contributions where they didn't have to write it down. So, I mean, I'm sure they spent, they spent 10 times as much as we did.
Wow, that's pretty scary, isn't it?
It is. And we have a very good attorney. If you want to write a measure, his name is Mark Wolf. He was about $7,000 is what he charged us. And so we probably are going to hire Mark again to help Dawn Addis write her bill because I think what you read me is not very good.
I
it could
agree
be a
with
lot
you.
better.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit left in our kitty, not very much, but we're going to, and Mark said he would do it if we could give him a target. So maybe you can, I don't know where to start, but you got to do it.
Yeah. Mark Wolf. Is that WOLFF?
FE.
FE. Thank you. And he's in Morro Bay, San Luis Obispo. Where is he?
Well, he's retired, so let me clear with him before I give you the details.
Okay. Okay. And who was the environmental expert that you had working with your team? The environmental attorney, was that Mark Wolf?
No. This is a retired lady attorney. We actually had a PhD in chemistry that did a bunch of reports. I mean, the talent in this town, education level, is just staggering. And this was just, and we also not only met Farmers Market on Thursday, we went to Buttercup Bakery on Tuesday, and we'd sit out in their patio, and people would come, and we'd explain things.
Excellent.
And it just kind of glow and grew and grew and grew. We had one man that spoke on the radio yesterday, and he was a retired state of California state tax board auditor. So he knows the numbers back and forth. And so talk about a wonderful speaker. And I'll send you the link to his conversation. It was about an hour on the radio.
Thank you.
And it's just amazing how clean it was.
Thank
so my point is, you never know where the talents are going to come from.
Yeah. We're going to go back on the air. Do you want to stay on, or do you want to...
I'd rather not talk. I'll listen.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right.
Welcome back to Community Matters. And thank you, Mr. Barry Branin. He and I were talking over the news break about further developments in Morro Bay, where his group, Citizens for Estero Bay Preservation, got together, got a citizens petition on the ballot, got it passed, and encountered some amazing large amounts of dark money coming in from Washington, D.C. and Delaware, television ads, things from Los Angeles flowing in to try to buy out the town to get in a battery energy storage facility in Morro Bay at a closed down PG&E power plant. So watch out for that, folks. He also recommends that we go to farmers markets regularly, be where the people are, give them information, raise the awareness, and get people on board. We need to support Assembly Member Dawn Addis in her quest to claw back the authority of the California Energy Commission that was given it in AB 205, to instead come back to the local people, support her with her recently, just yesterday, legislation AB 303. We've got to get behind her and convince other legislators to pass that quickly and the governor to sign it. You're listening to Community Matters. My name is Becky Steinbruner. I am honored to be your host here, and I want to thank Mr. Barry Branin again for calling in. I do have a second guest that will be calling in. Mr. Phillip Carranco, he may be delayed. He had a meeting that might run a little bit late. So in that time, while we wait for Mr. Carranco to come in via phone, I want to again announce the immediate request for volunteers for surface testing. This is sent out just about an hour and a half ago by the people who organized last Monday night's meeting, organizational grassroots meeting at the Prunedale Grange, to gather people together, and there were over 200 people in the Prunedale Grange, to figure out what to do and how to go after shutting down the battery storage facility at Moss Landing Power Plant, following up on the heels of the disastrous fire, and how to get information. There was one thing County Supervisor in that district for Monterey, Glenn Church, said, is that under SB 38, which incidentally is a piece of legislation that was passed, proposed and passed by Senator John Laird from this area, requires all such power plant, energy plant owners to have an emergency response and communication plan in place and approved by local jurisdictions. According to John Laird, in the interview on Good Morning Monterey Bay, and also that was the January 21st episode, and also by Supervisor Glenn Church. Vistra had done that, but it was done way before, about 4 months before SB 38 requiring the plans to be done. They got it in, but it was not very thorough. It was not adequate. And as one of the speakers from the citizens group at the Monterey County Board of Supervisors meeting Tuesday, a lady named Miss Nina Beatty, whom I hope to have on here in the near future, she had commented at the time that the power battery plant was on the board of for approval, and pointed out that the plan only was modeled for a one battery fire, not 100,000 batteries. That's how many units were inside that 800-foot long, 75-foot high facility in Moss Landing that burned. 100,000 of them, no separation. And once one started, it caused others to overheat nearby. Their cooling system failed. But the plan that Vistra had presented to the County of Monterey, under the requirement of John Laird's work under SB 38, was only for one battery. And the air monitoring patterns and that would show the plume of what would happen was based on information from the Salinas Airport, not Moss Landing, right there on the coast. So it was approved anyway, with great support of the Sierra Club and other environmental groups, and now we have this disaster. So I want to ask anybody with time tomorrow and Sunday to get in touch with the grassroots group working in Moss Landing. They need volunteers to collect, use, and return environmental samples. Prepared packages include non-toxic ghost wipes, testing materials, and directions for proper cataloging and handling, a chain of custody, because that's what you do when you have toxic or things that are of chemical nature. This test will allow our community to detect the presence, distribution, and quantity of heavy metals in our environment. There was one thing that I learned at the Tuesday Board of Supervisor meeting. The air quality monitoring was left basically in the early hours up to Vistra's private consultant, whom again Miss Nina Beatty testified Tuesday before the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. That company has a long history of problems. And it is not an independent organization. They are bought and paid for by Vistra. But the EPA did come into town. It took them a few hours to get there, and they largely relied upon the information from this consultant. And it was pointed out that the very toxic hydrofluoric acid, that the gas that would have been created by this fire, was not monitored because they didn't have the equipment necessary to monitor it. The Monterey Bay Air Quality Control Board also testified before the County Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, and they were measuring particulate matter. And it galled many, myself included, to hear the Monterey County Air Quality Control Board assure everybody that the little blip in degradation of air quality at that time was because it was cold and people were lighting fires in their wood heaters and their fireplaces. That was a little hard for me to hear. And there was no communication among agencies, as should have been laid out in a plan that was supposed to have been given to all of the responders, to the county health, to all of that, but that was missing. And as Monterey County Supervisor Glenn Church has pointed out, the PG&E facility and the Tesla facility still are not compliant with that, with SB 38, to have a pre-planned response for communication and air quality monitoring. So we have here in Santa Cruz County an opportunity to make sure that this does not happen in Santa Cruz County. As I said before, the facility for the Watsonville project at 90 Minto Road in Watsonville is already barreling down the track with people not knowing that it's going to happen there. And this is our opportunity to get our supervisor's ear and get our assembly member, Don Addis, who represents this area, part of this area, to get on board and be strong and not accept being bought off by some of this money, thousands of dollars from Dover, Delaware, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles to put all this in. I suspect that there is a lot of money that the state would be willing to throw at the Watsonville location because it is considered a disadvantaged community. So there's a lot more money available for that. And let me say that this all benefits community 3CE, Central Coast Community Energy, and that we have a real conflict of interest here in Santa Cruz County with our county administrative officer, Carlos Palacios, pulling the strings. And he sits on that board, 3CE's board. And we had a real conflict of interest with Supervisor in the 5th District, Bruce McPherson, shoving it through in his last days of being in office. He sits on the board of 3CE and was one of the primary founders. So next Tuesday, January 28th, the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors will be meeting at 9 a.m., a time when everybody can go see them at 9 a.m., but it is a virtual meeting, so you can testify, you can participate, you can listen. And that's the thing. We've got to listen. We've got to be involved. And they will be discussing, first item on the agenda, what happened at the Moss Landing Power Plant. So if you have time to help this weekend, I think I got a little lost there, I'm sorry, to help, you can meet Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Prunedale Grange. That is tomorrow. The Prunedale Grange is at 17890 Morro Road in, it's Prunedale. Also tomorrow, 12 to 1 p.m. at the Bank of America parking lot at the corner of Capitola Road and 41st Avenue. Let me repeat that. Tomorrow, 12 to 1 at the Bank of America parking lot at the corner of Capitola Road and 41st Avenue. You can pick up these kits and get the proper paperwork that's going to be needed to test for surface contamination. I received a notification from CrewsAware. I live in the Aptos Hills, and I received 2 notices from CrewsAware to go inside, close the doors and windows, turn off the ventilation system for my home, and not go out. Okay. I just got a note that the call-in studio is not working. I'm sorry, the call-in feature is not working. Let me try to fix this, and I apologize very much. Let me see what I can do here. Here we go. All right, here's my guest. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there, but let's go to Phillip. Phillip, can you hear me? Let me try again.
Hello, 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 hello,
Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Let me start over. That was terrible. You're listening to Community Matters. This is Becky Steinbrunner. I had technical difficulties with the phone-in function. I'm going to start over. So my apologies to the callers, my apologies to the listeners. Let me start over. All right. All right.
Ready to connect. Click Connect to show now. You are connected as the host. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-in Studio web interface. Audio recording is on. Dual channel.
Okay. Let me try this again. My apologies. All right. Phillip, are you there? Hello? Hello?
hello.
Oh, hello. I recognize Jessica. Is that you?
It is.
I am
Philip's been trying to call in.
I am so sorry. It was not showing up on my screen at all here. So I was just filling time. So my apologies. Let's go directly to Phillip and Jessica and Phillip. Thank you.
He's going to call in independently. Can you pick up that call, or should I merge him?
Let me see here. Hello, Phillip?
Hi, can you hear me, Becky?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, how you doing?
I am so sorry. I am so very
worries.
sorry. It was just not showing up on my screen here, and luckily someone came in with a note and gave me notification. So thank you.
No worries.
I will put myself on mute.
Okay.
I don't want to ruin the call. Okay.
Oh,
take
it
care,
wouldn't
guys.
ruin it at all. Thank you. All right. My apologies. Phillip Carranco, why don't you introduce yourself and take it away?
Sure, no problem. Yes, my name is Phillip Carranco. I am a regulatory compliance engineer. I've been doing this type of work for the past almost 30 years for various Fortune 500 companies. What my specialty lies in is dealing with international regulations to ensure that products that are manufactured by various companies meet and comply with the regulations to ensure that the devices sold do not impact other devices or are harmful to consumers.
Thank you. And how I heard you speak at Tuesday's Monterey County Board of Supervisors meeting, urging them to take some restrictive action. Do you want to talk with us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. What local government doesn't understand, and what I try to iterate in the 2-minute time frame that we have to try to get the right information to them, is that they hold a lot of control and power when it comes to dealing with the regulations. Yes, the state board and regulations out there are a foundational limit that the product is supposed to comply to make sure that it's safe and can be sold. It's the bare minimum that needs to be done. What our local government didn't realize and needs to understand is that they are allowed to increase those specifications to ensure that the environment that any device is connected up to, any type of industrial manufacturing facility we're having here going on with the batteries,
meet their requirements. They can exceed the normal the state government regulations. And that's what a lot of countries do and a lot of other areas do, is that they take control to make sure that their citizens are safe without worrying about what the bottom line is for the manufacturer. And that was what I was trying to convey to them, because they felt, I believe, that since the state stated that, they went to the state and got okay on the regulations and being things done, that's all that needs to be done. No, they can also put in a lot of other provisions in place, audit mechanisms, calibration aspects, monthly surveys. I mean, there is so much that can be done on a local level that wasn't done. Main thing they need to do is take back the control, take back the power, take a look at the regulations, and they are. I will admit to everybody, regulations are not easily to understand. They're very they're designed in a way to provide guidance and provide specific regulations and limits that we need to meet, but they are not very easily understood. And that's why you have a lot of experts out there. You have test labs that all they do is test to the limits. They don't provide any guidance. They just provide you a pass or fail. The people that interpret the regulations, like myself, are the ones that assist the manufacturers to make sure that they are compliant to the letter of the law. And what you want to do is you want to exceed those limits to make sure that you have a better product out there and that is very safe to the consumer. And that's kind of what I wanted to get to the supervisors, to let them know that you guys are not stuck. You guys, yes, we had a horrible incident happen, but we have a lot of things that we can do and put in place now to prevent this from happening in this magnitude again. We would be blind to say this is never going to happen again, because it is. There's going to be another fire, inevitably, but the extent of it or what damage it can do to the population can be mitigated. And that's what's key, and that's what I'm trying to get them to understand, is that you can put all these other checks and balances in place and make it where it is very difficult and not very cost effective to these manufacturers to come to your backyard and put something in there if you don't feel it's correct. You have that control, you have that power. And I think finally there's kind of doing that now, even across the board. But these battery facilities are just still going to try to get in as much as they can and try to get backdoors into it. So we just got to make sure that our local government is very well aware of the controls they have and they get the right experts involved to provide them that guidance, and not just call the state and say, hey, what do you guys think? What does your experts think about it? Because you're going to have a non-biased answer.
Thank you. And that's important for the people to hear. You've had a hard time getting the elected officials to hear and understand this, haven't you?
It always is. There's a lot of them, because what they do is they take the advice of their people. They figure they're hiring the right staff to provide them the right information. So whatever they're saying, they go by that ruling. They go by that judgment. Instead of having an open mind and a different view of what can and can't be done. Again, the regulations really are designed to allow for leeway as well as allow to be strict. Mm-hmm. It is just how you want to utilize them to your benefit. Mm-hmm. Some also will take a look at trying to interpret them in a way where it's like, I'm following the intent of that requirement, or I do fall in this one because I'm changing the way I'm describing my product. And I believe that's kind of what happened here. Mm-hmm. Is they took a facility, the old PG&E plant, that power came in, it got stored, power went out. Basic in and out type of philosophy. So another company comes in and says, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to have power come in, I'm going to store it, I'm going to get power out. The infrastructure should be fine. They're basically giving you the bare minimum information, not telling you how the energy is being stored, the different technology being used than the previous generation being stored. So that's where the information to supervisors needs to be brought. They need to do their due diligence. They need to do their deep dive and listen to the people that are really concerned about what's going on. and be transparent. If the deal is not good, it's not good. You know, we don't have to make sure that these companies, stakeholders, find their dividends at the end of the month. They don't really care. They don't live locally.
Right.
So it's just understanding how they're getting in, and how we can make sure that we put in so many rules that if they abide by them, great, because you know what? The rules are not meant there to discourage them from building the facility. It's to make sure that the community is safe.
Yeah.
The product that is being placed there is safe. You know, we have various locations where new things want to come in. There's a lot of different environments that can be affected, not just, you know, they look at the scope, well, it's an industrial facility. Yes, but you have the slough right next door. That's not industrial. You can't build it. That's environment. That's a different ecosystem. Did that get taken into consideration just from, you know, the traffic being built there? Not even if there was a catastrophe that happened, but just how does it affect the environment just in its day-to-day usage? You know, did that get taken into consideration? So it's sad that it had happened, but we can, as a community, make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yes.
Make sure that we have things in place so that you're not evacuated from your home. You're not concerned about the toxins that are in the air. And that's the critical thing here is, you know, what people are worried about.
Yeah.
So getting the right information to the people that make the right decisions on their behalf is key. Now, if they don't follow it, then we have to figure out how do we make that happen. We're providing you guys, like I said, we have subcommittees now. We should be making that provide the outside guidance, and they're the ones that the supervisor should listen to and follow their guidance, because they are going to have the best biased opinion, and that's where you have to be very, very specific on who you get it to make sure that they are biased. They have, you know, the intent of the regulations. They take the consideration of the manufacturer, take consideration of the community, and make sure that the decision fits both, and that things are put in place. If you are concerned about fire prevention, you put all the measures in there to ensure that the fire prevention is done correctly outside of the effects. If it's a regulation that needs to be done, you take a look at the regulations. How does it relate to the actual use case of that manufacturer? You make the changes proper to the installation and the use case of where it's going to be at within your environment.
Yeah.
And that's just the key. But to have that communication is what needs to be done first. And I'm very happy that they are stopping them from coming back up again, because that was one of my main concerns, is that, you know, they're going to allow them to continue working if they just tape off one little section. That doesn't help us. You know, we need to make sure that this is a situation. If this was somebody's house that had one room burnt on the side, the county would red tag the whole house. You wouldn't be able to live in it until you found that it was back up to code. That's what they should do here.
Yeah.
Find out what the problem was, bring it back up to code, and make sure better regulations are in place.
Yeah. I do know that for now, all of the battery systems there are shut down, but it was brought up that PG&E and Tesla could bring back up theirs at any time without any notification to anyone. And that is what Supervisor Church has asked in a letter, asking them not to do that until the investigation is complete with the fire. Phillip, we have a caller here that I met at the Prunedale Grange, Mr. Bruce Greenstein. Can I take his call quickly?
Sure, not a problem.
Okay, let me see if I'm going to be able to get him. Hello? Hello, Mr. Greenstein,
So
are you there?
talking, I'm still online.
Okay. Well, I think I can't get him back. I'm not sure what to do here. Hello, Mr. Greenstein?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello.
Is this Bruce Greenstein?
Yes, it is.
Oh, thank you. And I apologize for the problem here with the phone. I want to take your call. I know you've got kind of a tight schedule, and I'm interviewing Mr. Phil Carranco.
Yeah, I was listening. It was really nice. Really good information.
Thank you. And you said something at the Prunedale Grange the other night that I felt like people need to hear. Can you tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are on the evacuation and sheltering in place issues?
Yes, thank you, Becky. Thank you for providing this opportunity. Yeah, it's basically, I'm a general contractor and a professor of construction and energy. And basically, I want to give some facts about residential ventilation and basically the ventilation in your home, right? And I have actually in front of me, as I'm speaking here, the ventilation standard that County of Monterey adopted. This is not Bruce Greenstein stating this. This is just fact. The County of Monterey adopted the ASHRAE standard 62.2. This is a very common standard. This is pretty much a universal standard across the U.S. that's adopted, particularly as we really understand the science of buildings. And basically, this is a ventilation standard. It's called ASHRAE Standard 62.2, ventilation and acceptable indoor air quality in low-rise residential buildings. So basically, my concern was when I see this event is when we're being told by officials that you should go in your home and close your windows and doors, and somehow the air in there is going to be better than the air outside. To some extent, this could be true if this was a particulate fire. There can be a modicum of protection, but this is a different type of fire. This is a vapor fire, and that has much better ability to get into your home via air leakage. So why I bring up the ventilation standard is your house is by law has to change its air inside every 3 hours approximately. The standard is basically what's called 0.35 ACH. So air changes per hour. So basically a third of the air in your house should change every hour. So basically within about 3 hours, all of the air in your house will exchange. The other part of that standard is if you have a lot of occupancy, that could supersede it, and that's 15 CFM per person, cubic feet per minute. So if there's a lot of people, say 10 people, that house has to get 150 cubic feet a minute of air. So basically, telling folks to go in their house and tell them that the air is different in your house is really not truthful. The air is exchanging in your house, whether the HVAC system is on or off. The HVAC system merely moves the air around your house and conditions it. It doesn't really interact with outside air. That would be a bypass system, and that's very rare for residential systems. Mm-hmm. True, if you have the HVAC system on, it can induce infiltration, which will cause more air from outside to come in, but also could cause a positive pressure pushing the contents out. Regardless of all this, the fact I want to convey is your residential home is exchanging air roughly a third every hour. So every 3 hours, all the air in your house is going to exchange, and where is it exchanging it from? Outside. All right. Now, I do this as a profession, and I do it as a teaching profession. And in my experience, I've tested a lot of houses, and this is why we're trying to have these standards, is to make houses tighter, to make them more efficient. Our mantra is make the building tight, ventilate right. But we're not there yet. Essentially, what we have is really leaky buildings. So even though I'm saying the standard is 0.35, most homes actually leak way more, particularly if they haven't had any of this type of work done, which is also rare. This is a new thing that we're doing in the United States, and we're about 20 years behind. This is based on 35, 40 years of published building science about how to actually make a building have good air quality. And that's really what we're talking about here. That's really what I specialize in, is how do we achieve a healthy, comfortable, energy-efficient, water-efficient building. But all I really want to convey today is I'm concerned that when we have an event like this, or really any event that we have particulates and a poor air quality outside, that your house not necessarily is going to protect you unless you maybe have a specialized ventilation system with maybe a HEPA filter or something like that. But that's very unique and rare, and I doubt that that's the condition of most houses. Becky, I'm going to pause for a moment so you may reflect on that and ask any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was the main point I wanted listeners to hear. Being told.
Yeah, that was the nutshell. And, and the ASHRAE 62.2, you can Google that. That's U.S. Department of Energy. It's the ASHRAE standard. You could also Google County Monterey standard. I think it's standard building code notes, something like that. I have it up here. Let me give you the actual name of it. I don't want to give you false information here.
Because being told to go in and close your doors and windows rather than evacuate to where the air is not potentially
I would say get
toxic.
out of the area. Your house is not going to really be a great protector or provide better air quality indoors, mainly because of the air exchange and its inability to filter air at that level.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
And so the document I was talking about, the two, so the one is the main standard ASHRAE 62.2, and the other document I'm referring to is the County of Monterey Residential Standard Plan Notes, and these will be from 2022. Codes go in 3-year cycles, so they're probably using the 22 code cycle. That's what I pulled up when I went and searched. And it's number 1 on their light ventilation, glazing, and minimal room dimensions is the exact standard that I just quoted to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And that's good information that people have, especially referring back to Phillip. Are you still there, Phillip?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, thank you.
Phillip, I wanted you to get back to Phillip because I was engaged in his interview, and I think he has a lot to share. That's all I really wanted to share. Becky, thank you for providing the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And these documents are out there, folks. Just Google them. They're not mystery. It's not rocket science. It's just building science.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So yeah, thank you, Bruce. Really appreciate that information.
So, Phillip, this is information that people need to bring to our county supervisors, and in making more restriction, how can we apply what Mr. Greenstein just told us to protect people better in the next fire that we know will happen?
Yeah, we know that will happen. What we need to do is, again, it is understanding the regulations. That's the key thing as we move forward here, is really understanding what guidance is out there to begin with and what can we do as a community. So with respect to what Bruce had mentioned was that, that's your own home protection. That's what you can do for your home. Now, what we can do as a community is require the company to provide maybe subsidies that this needs to be done, since you are not conforming to certain regulations that you're now held liable for the damages to people. They need to update their homes. Airports have done that in the past. Airports have provided homes within the area payment to put dual pane or triple pane windows, so that the noise that's caused by the planes coming in and out, it doesn't impact people. So we need to start doing that. We need to see, why are they coming in and what can we do to protect ourselves? So we already know a fire has happened. It's not the first time and it's not the last time. Now we have people out there that are providing information of what needs to be done for your home. So if you're told to shelter in place as instructed, you have the right ventilation system in there to protect yourself, your family, your pets. That's what's key here, is to know that I have to change my normal living habits to accommodate your non-compliance to the regulations. That's what's key here. Those are what people need to. And this is done across the world. Global regulations are more strict than the ones used here in the United States. Europe has implemented a significant change in their green framework to be more environmentally savvy. They've put significant regulations on your standard battery, your normal AA battery that you put in your device, the one that's in you get for your phones. Those now have to be labeled with the chemical composition of what's inside of it and the shelf life in order for you to sell them in their country. And you also have to provide a way to dispose them. That's what we don't do here as a country. These are the regulations that these governments do to protect their citizens, not to encourage manufacturers to sell in my country or bring products in. They're there to protect the residents. Now, you had mentioned earlier that Tesla or PG&E might turn their systems back on, and Supervisor Church doesn't want that to happen. While he's working on it, ask them for a mitigation plan. What do they have in place? Show me your compliance to, if this happens to your facilities, what is different? What can you do differently to ensure that it's safe and compliant for my community? Right now, as they're contemplating it, this is the time to go in there and take a look at the regulations.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to be part of an advisory board to take a look at those to make sure they are compliant. And let's add a little bit more to it, because bottom line is the safety of the community. Provide the right information to them, making sure that these billion-dollar companies are not, are providing the right information instead of saying, hey, we're doing this because it's green for the environment. Not really. I mean, the byproduct of a lithium battery is not the greatest. As we know, the fumes are toxic, but even the disposal of lithium batteries, how are they biodegradable? It's not a natural mineral that just goes back into the earth. Yes, the composition comes from natural ores, but it has to be processed. There's stuff that's added to them. There has to be a way they get disposed. So it is now taking a look at what we can do as a community. Large corporations that have these huge infrastructures for database services, Google, Meta, Amazon, their databases are their bread and butter. They have these vacuum systems in their facilities that if they sense a fire, it basically sucks out all the oxygen so that it doesn't damage their infrastructure. Because if one goes up and they have a huge facility of these thousands and thousands of servers, that's a significant drop, and they would be catastrophic failure that the company wouldn't know what to do next. That's why they put these safety measures in place to prevent that to happen. This is the same thing here. We can't put water on a fire for lithium battery. What does fire need to survive? It needs oxygen. Put in a ventilation system. Is it going to be expensive? Yes, but you know what? That's the rules. That's the regulation that we need to do. You want to put this facility here in my backyard? This is what you need to do. You need to make the ventilation system. You need to provide checks and audits. I need to be able to come in once a month to audit your system to make sure that suppression system is working properly. Do that.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you have. Those are the things that the local government can say, I need these reports. And if you don't provide your reports, we're going to fine you $1 million a day until we get these reports. You don't give them a small fine. You don't give them a warning. You hit them where it hurts. And that's the power of local government.
Yeah.
It's taking the regulations and saying, okay, now these are our extra regulations, and you're going to comply to them. Force them to provide a fire department on staff. They pay for that out of their pocket.
Yes.
So there's so much that we can do. And what's sad, I guess, to say, but it also brings light, is when something like this happens is when the community gets involved. Instead of letting the community be involved from the very beginning, supervisors should not be the one making decisions on what's best for the community. It's 6 people, and I'm talking for thousands of people.
Yeah.
We have voices. We know what we like. We know what we want. We have concerns. We have people that have health issues. This is very catastrophic to them. A lot of asthmatic people. People were talking about that. Your doctor's coming in saying, this is not good for you. You have to leave. So it comes down to, what's best for both parties. And that's where you need that advisory committee to come in to say, of experts that have opinion on various things. It can't be 1 or 2 people. You have to be very specific on what we're looking at. You need someone that can deal with regulations. You have someone that knows toxicology, environmentalist, fire suppression, fire prevention. You get the opinions on all the different areas, and they provide you with their assessment. This is what supervisors need to say. This is what the experts have said to us. This is what needs to be done. this is what you need to do to put your facility in our community.
Excellent. Excellent. So the people, I mean, we have two things coming along together here. We have the Moss Landing community and the areas affected by the fire, which includes many homes, your home, my home in the Aptos Hills. I mean, I'm looking at, I received 2 notifications from CruiseAware and that the air quality was affected. And we need to get on board right now for what is coming down the pike in Santa Cruz County in Watsonville. So people, we need to go to the Santa Cruz County Supervisors meeting next Tuesday, 9 a.m., and speak out. We need to go to the Monterey County Board of Supervisors meeting and speak out. Supervisor Glenn Church, I think, is doing a good job, doing his best to work with Assembly Member Dawn Addis. We need to get on board with her and get AB 303 passed to get the power away from the state to sent back to the local jurisdiction. So we need to ask them to form an ad hoc advisory board of these experts like you, Phillip, who understand regulations and will craft with consequences that will matter to these large corporations if they are not in compliance. So the thing about Seahawk, this plan for Watsonville now, they have updated their site, and I want to thank Jessica for alerting me to this. They've updated their site. Safety is priority number 1, and they mention the fire at Moss Landing. Seahawk includes new battery technology units that are housed within within purpose-built sealed steel containers meeting national fire safety standards and testing. Each container will feature onboard heat monitoring and specialized fire suppression systems. But will they always work? Will they be tested? And each container will be physically separated by a buffer zone of several feet, they don't say how far, with the most updated California standards. So we need to be at the table with our supervisors. Yeah. We need to insist on that they form an technical advisory board and not rely on planning staff and New Leaf Energy to write the rules and say what's going to happen. We need to say what we want to happen. So,
correct. And
go
it
ahead.
sounds like they're saying all the right things because of what happened, and then you hold them accountable. If they are doing a fire suppression, you get that fire suppression technology, see what it's specific for, and that's going to be the key thing that so what the ad hoc committee would be able to determine: is it specific to that use case, or is it designed for something else in a capacity? How often are they going to ensure that system works? Mm-hmm. And if we have a power outage, which we do, is what's the backup like? Because if they're all on sensors, what's the backup? So there's a lot of things, that's where the committee comes in. That's where local government just doesn't go by their saying these nice words and making sure that these things are done. Okay, we have a checklist. We're going to check every single thing that you said by a few feet. By law, I believe, like for RV parking, they have to be a 20-foot clearance so that a fire truck can get through. That's what the separation should be.
Exactly.
There. Not a couple feet. So there's things like that where you take what they give you, which is great, but then you get the experts involved, you get the fire marshal involved, you make sure that they meet the local regulations,
which can be more restrictive than the states.
Yes,
that's the piece.
100%. That's the key. This is not state property that they're on. There's things that are being done. The state can do certain things. The local government has a control to tell you what type of zoning it is, they can change the zoning. If they don't want it there, make it a residential zoning rather than industrial zoning. The government can do that. So it is finding out where we can make the changes, get the right people involved, get the right information, and take away the pain. It's hard to do that for people. It's hard to take away the hurt. And when you're discussing things and you're going up in front of supervisors, because you are angry, and that's just inherent nature for people. You take away that, and you provide the facts. You provide the data that they cannot argue, and that's what's big with these corporations. You can't argue the data. If you're showing me that this is a fire suppression system that is only supposed to last X amount of minutes, maybe that's not long enough, because I need it to last 30 minutes rather than 10 minutes because of the potential of the heat being in that facility. So those are the things that need to be done. But you take away the compassion and the physicalness and go to the facts, go to the technology, use the regulations to your advantage, make sure you get them where it hurts. And believe me, companies don't like to be fined. That's why the federal government can fine up to these companies up to $50,000 per item sold. Not just a one lump sum, it's per item sold. Wow. So, that's a big chunk when you have these, items that are, sold at 1,000 units a day or 1 million units a year. That's quite a lot of money. Yeah. So you do take things serious when you get fined. And once you're fined by the local government or by the FCC, you're always looked at. You're always audited. So companies don't like to be in that crosshairs. But we can do that, and that's what local government needs to understand.
Yes. Another thing that we need to ask for is, this Watsonville plant would be within the jurisdiction of Pajaro Valley Fire Protection District, which is struggling financially. They are down to 2 people on an engine. They do not have enough money to fund a 3-person engine. They need to make sure that they have the money and that Green Leaf Energy, New Leaf Energy funds Pajaro Valley Fire Agency.
Correct.
To support this, to be, or as you said, to have their own fire station there at this site.
Yes.
And that's not unreasonable.
Not at all, no.
And they also need to have on-site, which did not happen at Moss Landing, a hydrofluoric acid monitoring equipment. They only measured particulates. They didn't have the equipment that they needed for the toxic gas. We need to make sure that this is at the site in Watsonville.
They need to do that in Moss Landing as well. Put monitoring systems in certain areas. One over there by the harbor.
Yes.
If something happened, just to measure the air quality at all times. They made the racetrack in Watsonville put up a sound monitor so that the community can know how loud it is, because they need to have under a certain decibel.
Yes.
That's what needs to be done. Put everything in place. Learn from your mistakes and make sure we are more prepared for the next one that's going to happen.
Yes, and the people and the local government do have power. That was very upsetting to me to hear the county council for Monterey County say, basically, our hands are tied. That is just not true. Yeah. That is not true. Yeah. We've got a couple of minutes left, Phillip. What do you want to say to the people who are listening?
What we need to do is the people, we have the power. We have the power to make the change. If we don't like what our supervisors are doing and not kind of going by the regulations, let's recall them. Let's get people back in there that really have the compassion for the community, not just for themselves. Take back the control, take back the power, make the local government be more transparent, provide you the information you need. We can do that as a community.
Thank you.
So that this doesn't happen again.
Yes, it will happen again, and it's not going to happen as miserably as what happened in Moss Landing. Attend the county supervisor meeting on Tuesday. And again, I want to thank you, Phillip. for
No, thank you, Becky.
this. I'm so sorry for the problems in the beginning. I quickly
No
want to
worries.
put out information about helping collect contamination samples anywhere between Gonzales to Scotts Valley, from Carmel to Gilroy. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Prunedale Grange. Tomorrow, 12 to 1 p.m. at the Bank of America at Capitola Road and 41st Avenue. Sunday, 11 a.m., 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Prunedale Grange, 12 to 1 at Bank of America corner of Capitola Road. Help them out and gather information about the contamination, because Monterey County is putting it off and the samples are degrading. I think we may be off the air. But
Okay.
Phillip, I want to thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Becky. You're welcome.
Thank
I
you.
got to jump off, and I have to go to a meeting real quick.
Okay.
Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Bless your heart.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Sure, bye.
You've been listening to Community Matters. Thank you. Oh my goodness, that was. Thank you for letting me know.
Also, when you told your guest you had 2 minutes left, it was actually 1.
Well, that's on the clock here.
I just go by standard time. My iPhone keeps pretty good time. But you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want. But you may have not gotten everything on here.
So, do you want to leave Cullen Studio on?
You can leave it on if you wish. I would
Okay.
like to get everything else started fresh.
Okay, I'll just start with that and let you go. I need to record my